My name is Joel Bachar, one of the founders of Microcinema International, which is a DVD distribution business, and also one of the curators of Independent Exposure, our short film and video series that we began in 1996.
And recently you've made some explorations into doing online distribution.
Mm-hmm.
You sent out some iTunes distribution agreements, and how did that turn out?
So that continues to be a work in progress. It's one of these things that feels or has felt a little bit like the .com excitement. I was one of the first people at Atom Films in acquisitions there, and there was a lot of excitement about short film on the internet and all of that. So there's a little bit of that Wild West atmosphere, yet I do feel like it's much more balanced with reality, as far as the economics of it and all that. What's been difficult for us is, to speak on iTunes specifically, is I think people see deep pockets and expect some type of significant return, and a lot of artists are not quite willing to just try it and put their work out there and see if it makes any money at all. It's so much in its nascent stage that there aren't a lot of examples of big hits as far as indie films or these art films are considered. So it's a kind of a catch-22 thing where we need these filmmakers to just try it, but they're a little bit resistant to, especially in the case of, since most of these are filmmakers that have a DVD out as well, they're worried that that's going to take away sales, where in fact I think it could help improve sales. And then one other part of the Apple deal is that they are asking for errors and omissions insurance, which can be prohibitively expensive. So that's something that we've had to go back and start to investigate as far as getting like a blanket E&O insurance so that these titles are covered. In the meantime, we continue to get solicited from a lot of VOD sites, and some of them have already come and gone or have downsized or refocused. And so I think we're still planning a online delivery platform through our own website. We're establishing some partnerships that will help drive that from the technical side. And we just have been hesitant to reinvent the wheel, but we also know that hard goods, DVDs, won't be around forever, and we need to be sure that we grow and evolve.
How many, for instance, the iTunes distribution agreements, how many of those did you send out to people, and how many people said, okay, this is fine?
We had, we sent out, we handpicked, a combination of iTunes handpicked, and then we handpicked along with them. In other words, they weren't interested in everything that we had. As progressive as people think Apple is, they're actually pretty conservative in a lot of ways. And they're very focused on like box office results or Amazon rankings. I mean, they actually look at an Amazon sales ranking of a DVD to figure out if it's a title that they want. So we really only had about the top 10, maybe not even 20 of our best-selling titles or popular titles or well-known titles that we solicited. And of those, I'd say there was some strong interest from 5 to 7 filmmakers, and others wanted to kind of sit it out and wait. And then some really never even responded. They were just focused on their next production or what have you.
There seems to have, as you said, be a lot of different video-on-demand scenarios that people are coming up with, and some are sticking around and some aren't. A lot of the companies have like Netflix as their box, their Roku, and then Apple has their box, their Apple TV, and
Right.
there's a few of these. Everyone's trying to come up with some kind of standard, and nobody seems to be agreeing on that. Do you see that as a major impediment to online distribution?
I do. I think when I mentioned reinventing the wheel, I mean I think the difference in us not wanting to reinvent the wheel for online delivery is that the internet is there, it exists, and there's not much of a reinvention as far as streaming, and there's really no way to kind of look that much different from any other streaming site. But as far as these other pieces of hardware or systems that are tied into an e-tailer like Amazon or Netflix, I think there's too many choices. I think, and now especially in this economy, I mean these are pretty kind of luxury items, and I think it remains to be seen what is going to work, what's consumer friendly, what's easy to use, what's going to stick. Part of that problem is content. I think a lot of these companies, when they come out and they call us, the first thing they say is, we've got 20 studios on board, Universal and MGM and all that, and then I ask, and what indie studios, what independent studios do you have? And that's why we're contacting you. We're just beginning, and but they tend to have this focus of the same old suspects, the Hollywood films, the sports, that kind of popular stuff, and I get that, but in the great balance of things, they're forgetting a major segment of content that's out there. And the next part of that is I always ask them what their marketing budget is, and how are they going to market this new product so people know about it. And they have very little marketing budget, and they have very little acquisitions budget as well. So, how do people even learn about them? And then, the offerings can be limited, So to me, it seems like somebody like with the muscle of Netflix or Amazon or Walmart or whoever might be doing something in this field, they're probably going to be the ones to have some staying power.
Have you looked at what the trends are about, like how many people are actually making use of these different non-traditional distribution forms for accessing media? I think people are used to the idea of like, I go online and I look at something and it's free. Mm-hmm. And if they're just downloading something, they don't always want to pay for it.
I don't have any hard facts, I haven't looked into studies per se, but just from being in the DVD distribution business and kind of reading some industry trends and also just sort of paying attention, I do feel like there's a leap of faith that people have to make to pay for something that they're used to seeing for free, and be it a YouTube type of phenomenon that has validated that free attitude on the internet, or even like you hear I read in the trades how the adult film industry is suffering on the DVD side because there is so much free content in that industry. I think it's safe to say the same for independent film. I can tell you from our screenings that we do offline through our independent exposure series and have been doing for 13 years, in the early days back in Seattle when I started this, our tagline was, you're going to see films that you can't see anywhere else. And they were short films, they were independent, avant-garde, experimental. And unless you came to this Microcinema and sat there with 50 other people, it was pretty much the only place you'd see those films in your area. Now you can't say that. Every filmmaker pretty much has their own website. There's YouTube. There's all these VOD sites. So that uniqueness of this content, I'm not suggesting that it's less unique, but I think there's less of an urgency for people to seek it out in an offline screening type of environment, because we've seen attendance go down, as have many other small theaters or microcinemas around the country. We've had this conversation with many of our peers, and we're all scratching our heads like, how do we get people, out of the house to come see these collection of short films when they may be justifying, well, I can stay in the house and just watch them online. So habits are changing. To what degree, what are the numbers? I'm not exactly certain.
What about other really non-traditional distribution forms like, I don't know, mobile devices? Have you looked into that at all? Or?
We have, and we continue to. It's a very confused industry as far as video content. The formats are all over the place. We were talking to one company that we were talking about doing video ringtones, and they needed a ringtone in something like 12 different formats because of all the different phones out there. And so that was just crazy. That was just a lot of work for a trial, but I think there's a world of opportunity there, especially for our so-called ambient video content that we specialize in, which is stuff that's been created for the flat panel TVs that are up, in pretty much every home now, or soon to be, that is non-narrative, is just visually stunning, kind of eye candy video wallpaper. That's a genre that we're focusing on, specializing in. And I think it's one that's perfectly suited for online delivery or other mobile devices. You're sitting there on the subway and you've got your iPhone and there's some kind of trippy visuals while you're listening to whatever music you want to. Not to mention just a different type of screensaver than what comes with your Mac or PC. So again, I think it's the context. I think we have to kind of look at the context here. Are you more apt to invite your friends over to watch a film on your cell phone? Probably not. Are you going to invite them over to sit around your computer and watch short films or independent feature? Probably not. So therefore, DVD is still relevant because you'll invite people over to watch the DVD. On this ambient side, that is something where you might have some friends over and like, hey, check out this weird stuff, and throw it on your computer and check it out. So I think it's back to that context.
And the ambient stuff, are people buying this ambient stuff?
They are not for cell phones yet, or for and I've pitched it hard to iTunes. They can't quite get their head around it, but we do have some interest in a major hotel chain is interested in this to show on their monitors around the lobby and other public areas, because they're just kind of sick of playing some of the same old like music videos or sports. So interest is growing in that realm, which is exciting, because I think that's a perfect example of just creating that context around content. So we started in exhibiting short film, and there's really no money there, and we never really intended that to be a business, and that's why we got into DVDs. We saw that people like yourself who were producing films, putting them out on DVD, wanted to get them out there, but really didn't have the knowledge or the interest or time or money to establish a pure distribution business. So that's why we started. And we've grown exponentially, both in human resources as well as revenues, since launching in late 2005. So here we're only going on 3 years, but it's been a great 3 years, and we've established ourselves as, I think, an important and viable distributor of independent film and video internationally. And it's how we have this office, it's how we pay everybody. The money is coming in. The margins are awful. Retail business is not a great business to be in. It's hard work, but we have a lot of very happy filmmakers who are receiving checks from us. But even more important than that, they're happy that we're getting their titles onto Netflix or into the Museum of Modern Art in New York's bookstore, or the Pompidou in France, or Borders Books, whatever the case might be. There's a lot of value, added value, to the filmmaker, where they can say that their work has made it out into the relative mainstream. And so I think that's important to look at, that we're not just kind of preaching to the choir, if you will, of selling independent films to independent filmmakers. I mean, we're really, trying to get titles out there across the board. And right now, what we know is that's what's bringing in the income. We're moving into Blu-ray slowly but surely, which is expensive, but that will add another level of income via DVD distribution. The economics of video on demand or online streaming or pay-per-view or micro payments of like paying 50 cents to watch a short film, those remain to be seen. But the only way that we will figure that out is to do it. And so between the short films from our Independent Exposure series all the way to all the DVDs that we distribute and the ambient stuff and the short film compilations or features, getting at least a minimal corral of those films excuse me, just out there onto the internet, onto VOD sites, onto set-top boxes, that's going to kind of give us a sense of what the future holds, slowly but surely. And I think it's just going to take time. It's going to take time for every household to have a Blu-ray player, first and foremost. It's going to take time for every household to have fast internet, and then from there, that perfect device that marries the kind of the DVD world with the television world and the internet world. So until that experience is there, and someone can sit on their couch and be comfortable and either subscribe in a monthly fee model or just, like I said, 50 cents a pop, kind of like these applications for your iPhone. I think it remains to be seen. And then ultimately, I think it's a numbers game. Even DVD distribution, it's a numbers game. I mean, if you start to look at, you sell 1,000 DVDs and what that brings you, then you just triple that to 3,000, to 10,000. You start to see how the numbers do add up. It's getting over that first hurdle of, in the case of DVDs, 1,000. In the case of online streaming, it's getting those eyeballs and that viewership. So that's the uphill battle. So it's going to take some time, but I think it's really important for us to keep a solid footing in this traditional offline DVD world, and then build the best of the online world as well. Just as when I was back at Atom Films and they were so focused on being an online entertainment company, I suggested very strongly to them that they do a DVD or they do screenings and keep in touch with the real world and the offline world. So I say the same thing to these online companies or technology companies that I do speak with, is what are they doing in the offline world to kind of marry the best of both worlds.